Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Great news. Today is Star Trek The Original Series Day, and we'll be watching Season 2, Episode 17, A Piece of the Action. It looks a little bit mobstery. I guess we'll have to see exactly how much of that is true and how much of that is thumbnail. But friends, before we get started, if you could do me a huge favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. It greatly helps out the channel and it allows me to alert you whenever we go live with Star Trek The Original Series again or any of our sci-fi fare. And of course, if there's anything that we do that you would like early or in its full-length format, the link to the Patreon, it's in the description. But my friends, all that is then and this is now, and now it's Star Trek The Original Series Day as we watch Season 2, Episode 17, A Piece of the Action. Prepare to engage maximum warp reaction, and away we go! Look at that beauty. How can you be upset when you look at that beauty, right?
They relate us to a man named Oxmix. His title is Boss.
Well, there's an intersection just at the end of the block, near a yellow fire plug.
Spock, McCoy, we're beaming down. Standard equipment.
Welcome to the bridge. Goodbye.
Horizon's contact came before the non-interference directive went into effect.
They must have interfered with the normal evolution of the planet.
It will be interesting to see the results of the contamination.
Really?
So we're going down to recontaminate them.
If the damage has been done, Doctor, we are here to repair it.
Okay. So this is a civilization that has basically been interfered with before the Prime Directive. All right. And they're very imitative.
Fascinating.
No one seems too upset by their dress. It looks like it's like a 1930s or 40s, judging by the cars and the dress.
Interesting, Captain. Passers-by are carrying, I believe, firearms.
Yeah, Tommy guns.
Okay, you three. Let's see specified.
Sir, would you mind explaining that statement, please?
I want to see it turn to stone.
Okay. This is why you leave an open channel whenever you initially beam down to an unknown planet. I've always thought that. Jim's going to tell us about the final frontier, everybody. I've always thought that a lot of the initial problems that especially the ToS crew has is if they went down literally with a communicator on. Like as soon as they transported down, they opened a communicator to Scotty, whoever's back up there, and just left it on so they could hear like speakerphone. Initially, when you hear an exchange like that, which just occurred, Scotty can immediately beam them back up. Again, whenever I take over Starfleet, that's going to be one of the protocols that I initiate, which is whenever you land, make sure you got an open line. Oh my God, I love this show so much. Why couldn't it have been like 10 seasons? Okay, who wrote it? Writer, director. Uh-oh. Yikes. James Comack. Oh.
Well, those firearms are not necessary.
You trying to make trouble? Ooh.
Yes. I'm sure I think the guy in the white hat too is a red shirt that we had before.
Well, since this Oxmus asked us down here, don't you think we should see him?
All right. Get moving. Down the street.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the guy in the white hat was a red shirt that... Drive by.
Man, scared back there.
Yeah, we ain't playing for peanuts. What's the matter? You guys never saw a hit before?
I love all the slang. The universal translator is having difficulty with Bing.
Hit that button. Yeah?
Got him, boss. No sweat.
All right, bring him in.
Hey, when you were going to decorate your office, what did you tell the interior designer? Guns. What would you like the style to be? Guns. Weapons? No. Guns.
Which one you got? All?
Does this guy know how to play fucking pool? Oh, they got a book.
Well, I was thinking.
Oh, take you into my confidence.
Since that other ship came here, You probably got all kinds of fancy heaters up there.
Weapons, hence the motif.
Mr. Oxmix, my orders are quite explicit. Under
I
no...
ain't interested in your orders. If I don't have those tools by then, I'm gonna call up your ship and have them pick you up in a box. Is that understood, pal?
Yeah. Just wait, here's one of them right now. I'll call Scotty. Scotty, send the beam me the fuck up to the Enterprise. We'll send it right down. And we'll nuke this place from orbit.
Captain Kirk, I usually get what I want. What's this thing?
Learn to live with disappointment. Let me show you.
All right, burn them.
Hold it.
What? Come on, what kind of threat is that?
It's a communication device.
How does it work?
Let me show you.
Take them to the warehouse and put them in a bag. Keep a sharp eye on them, you hear?
In the back, boss. Come on.
There really should be a standard for checking in over a period of time, and if you don't, you're immediately beamed back up.
Am I to understand that you're holding the captain and his party?
You heard right, pal. I'm gonna give you just 8 hours to get me the goods I want.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, sure. Beam them up.
Lieutenant Hadley, check the language banks and find out what a
Heater?
heater is.
Who's on the money? That's what I want to know.
If this society broke down as a result of the Horizon's influence, then the Federation is responsible, and we've got to do something to straighten this mess out. Do you think you could find a solution?
Unfortunately, I do not have access to my computers, nor are these gentlemen likely to permit it.
Well, I've got an idea about that.
I'm going to attack them. Because this is an area that seems ready for an attack.
Gentlemen. This,
I can I spy the fight scenes coming.
it's a man's game, but of course, probably a little beyond you. It requires intelligence.
Listen, Kirk. I can play anything you can figure out.
Let's do it. You want to play cards with Jim Kirk? Okay.
The name of the game is called, Fizbin.
Fizbin.
Fizbin. I'm going to write that down.
The second card is turned up, except on Tuesdays.
On Tuesday.
Jim, why don't you just stick with a regular card game that they won't know?
I need another jack.
No, if you got another jack, why, you'd have,
Spock. Here's the fight. Look at McCoy quickly dispatching his combatant. I'm just going to jump this. I could run right by it, but...
Listen, Pally, this could either be a taxi or a hearse. You know what I mean?
Yes, I can also use the butt of my gun. Bill Shatner. When I see multiple writers, I know we're going to get Shatnerisms throughout the episode, and this one... Damn! Go to sleep. I thought for sure, and you did too, that he was going to put her head down on the record. You thought it too.
Enterprise, this is Mr. Spock.
Lieutenant Uhura here, Mr. Spock. Mr. Spock, what are you doing on
It's
this?
a two-way radio. Interesting. Oh, this is... I can't always forget that this is where you can't really scan a planet and pick out somebody's signature unless they have their communicator on them, right? Just like their comm badge in like TNG in the movies. Righty, right.
Krakow. Jojo Krakow. I'm the head of the whole South Side Territory.
No, you're not. You run a diner. You are Alice's employer.
Well, I guess you want to know why I brought you here.
you want to make a deal?
Sure, Mel, whatever you want to tell us.
That's right, a deal. I want you to help me.
Let me guess. You want guns, heaters.
Let me guess. You want... You want heaters, and then you'll want,
And you are more persuasive and hospitable than Oxmix.
You give me what I want, and I'll cut you in for, say, a third. Skimmed right off the top.
It's not bad. Third from the top?
Let's sit down. You, me, Bella, discuss this whole matter, and talk about it like reasonable men.
You watch it, Kirk. The book tells us how to handle things.
Well, sit down is a thing that should be in the book.
Now listen, Pally, I know how to get what I want. You want to live, don't you, Kirk? You bet you do.
Let's have fun with this episode, everybody, because it's kind of goofy, but I'm enjoying it.
Tell Cyril the Knife to sharpen up his blade. I just might have a job for him.
Nice. Bo, go get Gatsby.
I'm sorry, Krakow. No deal.
That's too bad. Put him on ice.
Shoot him 8 times. Well, at least you have a typewriter. A convenient letter opener to use as a, shiv. The funny thing is that Jim actually should have at least a little bit of knowledge about how to work around this stuff because of City on the Edge of Forever, whenever Spock was using tubes and shit to try to make their device. He should know what each of those can do as far as the rudimentary, pieces. Not that Jim wouldn't anyway. I'm just saying he's had some reason to,
What's the trust? Business is business. We'll call a truce. You come on down.
I tried to kill you. I like shit like this. This is Jim at his best. Jim figuring out cool stuff. Like this very much. Yep, gonna have to break it.
Help me!
Oh, there you go. That piano wire worked well. I know it was cable from the radio. Where's that gun? Good move, Bill. Good fucking spatial awareness by Bill Shatner there to realize that gun went under the cot. That's fucking great. Bill's like, I'm not doing this scene again. I know where that gun went. This show is so great for little reasons like that. Just it shows such a level of professionalism. And kudos to our new director, James Comack, for letting that shot go. Cool stuff. Guys, fucking seriously.
Incredible as it seems, Dr. McCoy and I are once again prisoners of the chief criminal boss of a society patterned after old Earth gangsters.
Drop the guns. Drop them. Move down there.
Yeah, can we get our shit back?
Hey, Captain, you got away from Krakow. You know that ain't easy.
I thought you were supposed to report to the ship, Mr. Spock.
We did. Then we came back.
Logic and practical information do not seem to apply here.
You admit that?
Nice one, Plum. Nice
I'm
one.
not sanguine about hunches, Captain, but I have no practical alternative.
What are we going to do now, Jim?
I can't stop you, is what Spock just said.
Now listen, you. Say, that's nice material.
It ought to be. It cost a bundle.
Get out of them.
Hey,
I said...
just a minute.
You too.
We do things differently in space. Here we go. Listen, this is a fun episode. And it's goofy and shit, but whatever. I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
There's the start.
Yeah. There you go.
Interesting.
Oops.
Clutch in.
Oh, I believe they had a device known as a clutch. Clutch, Captain. Perhaps one of those pedals on the floor.
Any idea which one there, Spock? Get used to the grinding sound. Here we go. When we're off. Actually doing a pretty good job. I've never driven a clutch before. Like many of you, I am old enough to have learned on a clutch and driven a clutch for the majority of my youth. So
You are an excellent starship commander, but as a taxi driver, you leave much to be desired.
It was that bad.
it was that bad. I love shit like that. After we've known Spock for so long now, that's Spock being endearing. Busting balls.
It's a hit, ain't it?
I beg your pardon.
You're gonna hit somebody. Can I watch?
Sure.
You know a way we could get close to them?
Sure.
How?
What's in it for me?
What do you want?
A piece of the action.
How about one of these guns? Fuck it, they're not ours.
All right, young man, we'll guarantee you a piece of the action if we can pull this thing off.
Was that a contract?
Done.
This kid's the best actor they've got in this episode. I'm loving it. I'm loving this kid.
What's the matter? Did you hurt yourself, kid?
I want my daddy!
He's a cute kid, ain't he?
Daddy! I want my daddy!
Okay. I'm so stupid I fell for it. I was like, is Krakow his father?
What have you done?
Piece of the action.
No shit, this might be one of my favorite episodes just for the shit that they're saying. It's just hilarious.
I just heard the sound
The
of...
sound of a machine gun bolt being pulled back.
Is it the kid? Ah, shit, I thought it was gonna be the kid. Oh, that would have been so cool. Like, if the kid was actually his kid. So who do you put in charge, everybody? Oxmix or Krakow? To be fair, Krakow is a little bit more polite.
Forget it. That's peanuts. Right.
Right.
Now look, Krakow, we're taking over.
Spock is completely out of his environment. Improv is like,
Small piece.
How much is that?
That's
a third off the top. I take it back. Spock's doing a hell of a good job with Vulcan improvisation.
He's standing about 12 feet in front of me, all ready to be our pal.
You can beam him up.
We're on the level. But you know how it is.
Took a while for those synapses to fire.
We're preparing everything. It'll be ready when you give the word.
You may begin, Mr. Scott.
The word is given.
Mean you're gonna start sending down your boys now?
Other way around.
Not exactly.
I thought the hat was going to drop, which makes no sense, but for some reason I thought that. I mean, listen, if I'm getting into a fight with the command crew from the Enterprise, I am definitely squaring up with Spock. He's going to take me out, but it's a pinch. It's not like a haymaker. How do we keep getting startled by automobiles? So, our guns were just here in this world of thievery.
Hey, you guys, come in here!
Everybody's fucked up.
Snatch Krakow. I never seen anything like it.
Time for me to take over.
Knowing Krakow, he'll probably send him back on a blotter.
Wrong again, Oxmix.
Surprise.
Knock it off, Sobos. I want to talk to this creep.
Such a silly episode. Just said, fuck it, I'm just gonna try whatever.
Get on the blower and call the other bosses.
The
I
utter.
don't know what you think you're talking about.
Get with it, I'm giving
Get the other
orders
bosses. These guys are wearing union suits. Oh, Jesus, this show.
Coming over there with a couple of my boys, and we...
Holy shit, I think that's the guy that killed himself from, we just talked about him, from Sitting on the Edge of Forever.
All right, you know what to do. We hit Bella's place and nobody comes out alive.
Except us. We come out alive, right, boss? I don't want to be part of this if it's the other way around.
Kepler's got a point.
Right.
All we ever seen is them.
What? A couple of your boys?
Bring the ship into Atmo. Bring the ship into Atmo. Fuck them. That's exactly what I'd do. Bring the fucking ship down. Time to flex. Time to flex, Jim. This is what happens when you take all the bosses off the street.
Put the ship's phasers on stun. Fire a burst in a 1-block radius around these coordinates.
Right away, sir.
Next shot is coming through the window, bud. I'd have brought that ship right in. The whole planet would be losing its shit. Never give me the chair, ever.
Okay, a syndicate makes sense to me. I'm a peaceful man at heart. there was just one, maybe somebody like you as the top boss, then we can get things done.
Hey, Bella.
Didn't I say that?
We'll be back every year to collect our cut.
Look, you figure maybe 40%'s enough?
Yeah, I think 40% sufficient.
And here's the deal. Every year we come back, if things are running great, we take 5% less the following year. That beauty.
Gentlemen, you two have been brooding ever since we returned to the ship.
It's because it was fucked up, Jim. It was super fucked up.
You don't think it's logical to leave a criminal organization in charge?
Highly irregular, to say the least, Captain.
Oh, what are we gonna do, dude?
How you propose to explain to Starfleet Command that a starship will be sent each year to collect our cut?
We're never coming back.
Well, I don't know how serious this is, Jim.
I really like that whiskey down there.
Somewhere, I'm not certain.
Where?
You're
What?
not certain of what?
I left my communicator.
In Bella's office?
The translator is the basis for every important piece of equipment we have.
You really think it's that serious?
Serious. It upsets the whole percentage.
How do you mean?
Well, in a few years, the Iosians may demand a piece of our action.
They fucking did the freeze frame at the end. What an episode, everybody. Holy shit, this episode. All right, everybody, we just got done watching Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 17, A Piece of the Action. And the only thing left to do, and we're going to talk about it, is talk about it. All right, everybody, we just got done watching Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 17, A Piece of the Action. Friends, go right ahead and hate me. I had some of the most fun I've ever had watching Star Trek in this episode. This was the best. Was it a great episode? No, it was not. It was not a good episode. It was, I mean, again, if you love this episode, know that I love it too. Hand to God, you saw, I absolutely enjoyed myself. There's different types of episodes, obviously, for anything, different types of the way that we, as human beings appreciate art. The greatest thing about Star Trek, the original series, is it runs the entire spectrum of things that you can enjoy. Science fiction that you can enjoy, I don't have to go through everything. It does great stuff in many different genre type things, whether it's comedic. We've seen that with Trouble with Tribbles, which was one of my all-time favorite episodes. Loved it. I sort of put this in that vein. It's not as well written. I'm not trying to, in my opinion, it's not as well written as Trouble with Tribbles. I think that we're going to find out when we do Q&A that there was at least a little bit of script trouble with this one. The telltale sign for me when there is script trouble with an episode is we get Shatnerisms. The more Shatnerisms we have, the more trouble with the script there was. We had a bunch in this one. So I am real curious. If it's not, I will absolutely state, hey, no script trouble whatsoever. My theory is wrong. That's my theory, though, because Bill went a little bit over the deep end with some of his Shatnerisms. And again, the Shatnerisms to me are always reflective of script trouble, where Bill Shatner's literally being handed pages for the scene he has to film in 10 minutes, and he's got to commit all of this new information to memory, and some of it, technical jargon or made up words, or races or planets or whatever would happen to be. So, it's an old device, and especially since we know that he comes from the stage, it's very easy to fall back into that cadenced meter that you have on the stage that allows you to, syllabically hit certain things. And, if you're talking in, if you're doing Shakespeare and you have to hit a certain beat and rhythm, you're able to do so and continue to do so. And it aids with memorization, because a lot of times, especially with like Shakespearean monologues, whether it be like, Hamlet, or, you're doing one of the histories or something like that, it helps to do, have that meter, have that cadence that you're able to hit, because that, much like a song that you're listening to and you learn the lyrics of, again, you all know this, I'm acting like I'm some type of fucking authority, but it's easier to memorize the lyrics to a song because there's a beat associated with it and you know how it's supposed to come and when it's supposed to follow. Same thing whenever you do a metered cadence for a monologue, and that's why so many Shakespearean actors have just a delivery. In fact, there is a great, I'll probably try to find the clip and put it in here, of numerous Shakespearean and predominantly British actors recently coming in and giving different ways to say the line. I think it's to be or not to be. And it is, I think they do like 20, and it's absolutely, and it ends with now King Charles coming out and doing it. It's really, really good. Now, but again, I always kind of default to that. Like, if you have a certain rhythm that you approach your monologues or your line study, then you're going to have that delivery. And again, it can change the entire meaning of certain lines, and thus to be or not to be, it's said in certain ways with certain pauses. And that's where that's where Bill sort of gets into trouble, because his cadence would work, unfortunately, in certain line delivery, but in other line delivery, it comes off so Shatnerisms, and we saw a little bit of that today. But anyway, that's my long-winded way of saying I'm pretty sure there were script problems. However, again, of the different, we can see a city on the edge of forever, a balance of terror, and it's some of the best show, not just TV, but just best art I've ever watched. I absolutely love it. The characters are spectacular. But what makes it great? Okay, well, when we watch Balance of Terror, we're seeing something we've never seen before, and it's presented in such a way with incredibly compelling dialogue. You have the direction coming in where McKevity is able to like absolutely capture the scene. The striding in the corridors, everything about it works. The puzzle goes together. There are no missing pieces. And then you have episodes where a couple of the pieces fell underneath the couch. So everything doesn't fit quite right. You're not necessarily able to make it all mesh, but you still get something from the episode. You can see the majority of what the puzzle's supposed to make. And I think in this one, what was really great is this was a strengthening of the bond between Kirk and Spock. Some great banter. Again, I mentioned it a few times back whenever, you look at a few reactions ago, when you look at Spock and the way Leonard Nimoy does Spock now, whenever I look, I can tell when he's being sarcastic. It's almost like hanging around Groot long enough from Guardians of the Galaxy. At some point, you understand the I am Groot as whatever the hell it is. Like if you're a Rocket Raccoon, you hear the actual translation of that in the way that he's saying it. Again, another example of, the to be or not to be, I am Groot can be said a bunch of different ways. But it's very, very interesting to me that is how everything is approached. And when Leonard Nimoy approaches Spock like that, he's able to give us, while staying in and true to the Vulcan character, not becoming emotional, not becoming, depressed or highs or lows or anything. He's always in the pocket. He's able to go right, toe that line at either the height or the bottom to give us passive aggressive, to give us insulting, to give us humor, to give us, sarcasm. And it is done in such a way where, sometimes it's very overt and you're like, oh, okay, he's being a smartass. But other times it's just Nimoy playing with the line. And oh my God, it's expertly done. It's so great. And again, whenever I think about like the Man Trap and some of the Charlie X and some of the earlier ones, I never would have picked up on that. And I'm sure he's been doing it the whole time. Maybe not too, because Nimoy is becoming more comfortable with the character. His progress or his process and his progress in his process for Leonard Nimoy and Spock is a thing of beauty. I mean, I'm sure there have been acting students who have really researched this performance and been able to pick up the nuance. It's absolutely incredible, because even back in the day when presented, like Vulcan is just part of our, a Vulcan, I got it, logical, live long and prosper. That's part of our like vernacular now. But back in the day, you are the first Vulcan. You don't know how they're supposed to act. I mean, what a case study in taking a character and a concept for a character and being able to add the appropriate amount of color and texture to the painting where it becomes a collaborative piece of art and generates a masterpiece. Leonard Nimoy, everybody. And again, with this episode, we got to see Leonard Nimoy and Bill Shatner as Spock and Kirk really start to mesh. Funny lines, the driving, your driving's what scares me. That shit is great. The little looks they gave one another, the ability to kind of get Spock. See, these are things that I know about from the movie that Spock eventually kind of warms up to. You lied. No, I exaggerated. That shit is the great. We see it being constructed and being born in these types of episodes where Spock doesn't get the whole improv thing. We're pretending to be somebody we're not. Why the fuck are we doing that? And then Spock gets it, and he looks at Jim a different way, like, okay, all right. And he puts his feet up on the desk. That shit is awesome to me. It is absolutely awesome because it is a subtle connection between both actors and characters that, I mean, you just don't see that type of shit. You really don't, especially in today's day and age where a season is 8 to 10 episodes. We look at this, we've got 25 plus episodes. They've got so much time to cook with these characters and really cook with each other and really start to make this shit work. And that's what an episode like A Piece of the Action, that's what it gives me. Not a great story, a weird kind of story, goofy kind of story, but which I dug. I liked it. Over the top acting as these gangsters and everything, it's fine though. It enabled our guys, our Leonard Nimoys and our Bill Shatners to really have fun with their characters. And what better way to see the entire spectrum of the acting profession than allowing them these times to be able to really kind of go into to voyage where they haven't voyaged before, and really chart a new course with these characters. And there's a little bit of what happened in A Piece of the Action to Spock and what happened in A Piece of the Action to Kirk that eventually will evolve and become the Kirk and Spock that I've seen in the movies. But friends, there is so much about this episode that I've got to know predominantly, was this script a shit show or not? My money going into this is shit show. If it's not, I will absolutely let you all know. But the only person that can tell us, well, there's actually two people that could tell us, but I think the other one is pretending to be a Klingon somewhere, or Klingon somewhere. So I guess we're going to have to go back to old reliable and beg with all of our hearts for the information that we need from this, the 17th episode of the second season, A Piece of the Action. Q. Greetings, mon capitaine, and welcome to another installment of Q&A. Friends, this is where, after having watched and reacted to an original series episode, I like to dig a little bit deeper and find out what went on behind the cameras, because as we've often said, the story behind the cameras is just as intriguing as the one they put in front of it. But friends, to keep myself from talking for 3 hours and wandering off into the weeds, I've given myself 5 distinct categories in which to approach. The first, writer and director. Who were they? Second, guest stars. Did we have any? Third, of the core cast or the Big Eight, who was present. 4, the spiciest of the categories, are production notes, what went on behind the camera. And last but certainly not least, category 5, a memorable quote from this episode. Let's get started. All right, friends, and for our first category, we have writer and director. Who were they? Well, our writer for this episode was David Harmon. We've seen his work before in The Deadly Years, and I thought this one was fun. I've bet anybody that asks me about Piece of the Action, I always say it's fun. And I thought this was a fun script. Gave a lot of play to Spock and Kirk. Really good stuff. Now, who was our director? Brand new Star Trek rookie James Comack. A couple of things I noticed throughout the production of this episode. He allowed some of the shots to go on, most notably whenever during this fight sequence, one of the Tommy guns went under the cot, and William Shatner, they allowed that to play out, and William Shatner, spatial awareness, knew exactly where it went, grabbed the gun and left the scene. Some other directors might have seen that as a problem and cut mid shot to be able to reset a little bit earlier. James Comack let that go. Well done, sir. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our second category, guest stars, did we have any? We did indeed, my friends, and I've narrowed it down to the 3 bosses that were in play, or as Uhura would say, boss, which I thought was the best. All right, our first one is Anthony Caruso as Bella Oxmix. Our second is Victor Tabak as Krakow, who's also Mel from the TV sitcom Alice. And last but certainly not least is John Harmon as Teppo. Now, John Harmon was indeed the person from City on the Edge of Forever who found the phaser and was looking into it and inadvertently phased and killed themselves. one of the most powerful moments in all of Star Trek, I attribute to the one that John Harmon was in. An incredible moment, very shocking. If not the most shocking moment of the original series, definitely up there. Great guest stars, friends. Let's move on. All right, friends, in our third category of the core cast, or the Big Eight, who was present? Well, let's recap the Big Eight real quick. We've got Kirk, Spock, McCoy, we have Sulu, we have Scotty, we have Uhura, and added for season 2, we have Nurse Chapel and Chekhov. Of everybody here, we had 6. No Nurse Chapel, and again, no Sulu because George Takei was filming the Green Berets. But 6 out of 8, pretty good. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our next category, category 4, production notes. What went on behind the camera? What were all of the production tidbits that made up this episode a piece of the action? Let's get started. All right, friends, our first production note, and I think this one is pretty cool. The car that Kirk was driving throughout the episode was a V12 Cadillac. Now, this was a 1931 model, and it just so happened to be very similar to the 1928 model, the V12 Cadillac, that Al Capone drove. And as rumor would have it from the books that I read, it was the closest they could get to the 1928 version. This 31 version was damn near exact. It was just 3 years later. But I thought it was pretty interesting that they went that extra mile to get it as close to Al Capone as possible. We'll talk a little bit more about that one in some of the further notes, but also as a little bit of an asterisk or an addendum to this one, this notes the only time any cast member of the original series operates a motor vehicle. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our second production note, I promised we would get back to the Al Capone mention that we had before in the Cadillac production note, but this story actually originated from a one sentence, not even a full sentence, a title that Gene Roddenberry came up with very, very early in the pre-production of season 1. And what did he put down? Just on one of his note cards, just off to the side of one of his books that he used, he wrote down 2 words: President Capone. Pretty cool. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our third production note, this one's a good one because anytime I ever hear of an alternate version of an episode, I always love to share those for comparison's sake, just to see, what it could have been and what it was, and whether or not there were elements lost that maybe you would prefer, or you're super happy that they didn't put them in there. It's interesting. So let's use this one that they have here. This is actually the original version of the script as written by David Harmon and then helped by Gene L. Kuhn. And what they decided to do is a lot of the elements remain the same. You still have the planet that was kind of contaminated by the mob boss book. So a lot of that is still the same. Bella Oxmix, a lot of those characters are still the same. However, they involved the Romulans in the original script. And there is from what I understand, there is a Romulan ship with 2 captains. One ship, 2 captains, and their names are Rorek and Ramo. I believe I've got that right. I would have loved to have seen that, just full stop right there. But what ends up happening is that you have competing ideologies as the Romulans approach the members of the crime boss world, and you have the Federation and the Enterprise as they approach the crime boss world. The Romulans are more than willing to arm the crime bosses and provide them with certain things. But the long story short, I think they find out that the Romulans want more than what they're actually giving. So at the end, they decide to go with the Federation. And so Kirk and company basically tell them, hey, you're going to need to, vote for a representative to basically go and meet the Federation and become a part of the Federation and all this great stuff. So they gather all the crime bosses together, of which there are around, they approximate the number, but it seems to be around 20. And they ask all the crime bosses, hey, vote for somebody and we'll send that person as the ambassador from your planet to the Federation. And in true crime boss fashion, all 20 voted for themselves. So the episode ends with 20 crime bosses being introduced to whatever conference or ambassador as part of their planet's delegation. I don't know, friends. What do you think? Let's move on. And now for our fourth production note, my friends. This episode, piece of the action, marks the only time in the original series that Jim Kirk refers to Leonard McCoy by his full nickname, Sawbones. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our fifth and final production note, we have a twofer in this one. And there are two very short but very interesting little tidbits about this episode. The first of which is this episode, A Piece of the Action, marks the very first time in Star Trek that we see a site-to-site transport. Whenever the crime bosses are transported from the other end of their phone into Oxmix's office, that's our very first site-to-site transport. And friends, last but certainly not least of this twofer, this is the only episode of Star Trek the Original Series to end in a freeze frame. That's great! And now, friends, for our last category, memorable quotes. What was a memorable quote from this episode? Well, it was a fun episode, and I wanted to capture that in the quote. So this is an exchange between Kirk and Spock. We'll just say it focuses on the good captain's driving. Kirk says, "Are you afraid of cars?" And Spock responds, "Not at all, Captain. It's your driving that alarms me." And friends, thus ends another installment of a Q&A. Until we meet again, behave.